All right, so today we're talking about God of War 2018. And yeah, I know, this game has been talked about a million times, broken down, analysed, praised, criticised, and compared to almost every big title that came out in the last few years. But this isn't about repeating what everybody else said. This is about looking at the game from a modern perspective, all the way here in 2025. After all the hype, after the sequel, after the industry changed again, and after we've had years of distance to actually understand what this game did right and why it mattered so much. And even today, it's still one of the strongest examples of how to reboot, reinvent, and evolve a franchise without losing its identity. But to really understand why this game still works, we need to go back to where it started. Back to 2010, when God of War 3 wrapped up the Greek saga. Kratos kills Zeus, destroys Olympus, unleashes chaos everywhere, and basically ends his role as the angry ghost of Sparta. And then, silence. For 8 years, no one knew if the franchise was coming back. The old formula of fast hack and slash gameplay was getting outdated, the industry was shifting, and a lot of people assumed Kratos was done. But Santa Monica Studio wasn't finished with him. When God of War 2018 was revealed, it shocked everyone. Not just because Kratos was back, but because he looked and acted completely different. He was older, calmer, more grounded, he had a beard, he had a kid. The camera was over the shoulder instead of fixed. The gameplay was slower, heavier, and more strategic. It was like they rebuilt the entire franchise from scratch, while still keeping the core of what made God of War special. The stakes were high. People were skeptical. But once the game launched, it became clear that this wasn't just a comeback, it was a full evolution. So in this review, we're covering everything. The intro, the gameplay, the combat system, the story, the music, the pacing, the world building, the characters, the emotional beats, and the overall legacy of the game. And we're doing it in a simple, straightforward, personality-driven review style. No fancy language, no poetic metaphors, just an honest breakdown of why God of War 2018 still hits as hard today as it did when it launched. The game opens with something that immediately sets the tone. No giant monster, no collapsing buildings, no over-the-top cutscene. Just Kratos standing in the forest, cutting down a tree. It's quiet, grounded, and different from anything the series had done before. This intro isn't just a scene, it's a message. It says, Kratos has changed. And this game is not the same God of War you played back on PS2 and PS3. The entire beginning focuses on Kratos and Atreus, preparing for Faye's funeral. It's personal, it's uncomfortable, there's tension between them. Atreus wants connection, Kratos wants distance. And this subtle emotional conflict becomes the foundation of the entire game. This is the first time we see Kratos trying to be something he never was before, a father who actually cares. Not a rage machine, not a warrior, a father. And then, right when things seem quiet, Baldur shows up. And that fight is one of the best introductions to gameplay ever created. It's cinematic, it's intense, and it shows you exactly what kind of game you're about to play. Grounded, but still capable of massive spectacle when it matters. This is how you introduce a game, a world, and a new chapter in a character's life. Calm build-up, explosive payoff. Story is easily one of the strongest parts of the game. It doesn't try to overload you with mythology at first. It doesn't throw a giant prophecy in your face right away. It keeps things grounded. Spread Faye's ashes on the highest peak of the realms. That's it. A simple mission with emotional weight. Along the way, Kratos and Atreus grow as characters. They argue, they fail, they learn from each other, and they slowly begin to trust one another. Kratos is scared of teaching Atreus the wrong things, while Atreus is frustrated that Kratos doesn't open up. This constant emotional push and pull makes their journey feel real. The supporting cast is great too. Freya brings depth and mystery. Mimir adds humour, lore, and a lot of charm. Baldur is the perfect antagonist, conflicted, powerful, and deeply connected to the themes of pain and family. The game doesn't just throw characters at you. It builds relationships, reveals secrets slowly, and ties everything together in a meaningful way. And the final reveal, that Atreus is Loki, opens the door for future games while still feeling earned, the best part. The story doesn't rely on shock value. It builds naturally from everything that came before it. Now let's talk gameplay, because this is where God of War 2018 made the biggest shift. Gone are the fast-paced combos, the sweeping camera angles, and the button mash finishes that defined the older games. The new camera is right behind Kratos, placing the player right in the center of every fight. You feel the weight of every swing, every block, every dodge. It's slower, but heavier. It trades speed for impact, and honestly, it works. The Leviathan Axe is easily one of the best weapons ever created in gaming. The throwing mechanic alone could carry an entire combat system. There's nothing like throwing the axe at an enemy, freezing them, and then recalling it through every other enemy in the line. The feedback is perfect. The sound, the vibration, the visual impact. Everything about this weapon feels satisfying. And then you add the runic attacks. These are basically special moves with cooldown timers. Some are fast, some are heavy, and some completely change how you approach fights. Instead of just spamming attacks like older God of War games, you use runic abilities strategically, planning your combos and managing cooldowns. It adds a very modern layer of design to the combat system. Atreus is another huge part of the gameplay. A lot of people expected him to be annoying or useless, but he's the exact opposite. His arrows interrupt enemies, stun targets, and assist you when you're low on health. He grows with the story, and you actually feel the gameplay reflect that growth. He starts off nervous and hesitant, but by the end, he's firing arrows non-stop, summoning animals, and becoming a key part of the action. Now let's talk about the Blades of Chaos. When Kratos goes back to get them, the entire gameplay shifts again. Suddenly, you have access to faster, fire-based attacks that feel like a tribute to the old God of War games. You go from freezing enemies with the axe to burning entire groups with the blades. Switching between the two weapons becomes second nature, and by the end of the game, the combat feels deep, layered, and incredibly satisfying. Even the enemy design supports this combat system. You have Draugr, Revenants, Travelers, Ogres, Trolls, Dark Elves, and more. Some enemies force you to use the axe, some force you to use the blades, and some force you to rely on Atreus. It's all intentional, and it keeps fights from getting repetitive. The Norse world is rich, detailed and full of history. Every realm has its own identity. Midgard is harsh and cold, Alfheim is bright and intense, Helheim is oppressive, and so on. Even the Lake of Nine changes as you progress through the story, lowering the water and revealing new areas. Everything feels connected, alive, and worth exploring. The puzzles are well designed too. They're not insanely complicated, but they break up the combat nicely and reward you with useful upgrades. Nornir chests, hidden realms, Valkyries. There's always something to do, and the world encourages you to explore without overwhelming you, getting repetitive. So does God of War 2018 still hold up today? Absolutely. The gameplay still feels modern, the story is still emotional and engaging, the world building is strong, the characters are memorable, and the music is timeless. It's one of those rare games that balances action, narrative, and exploration without dropping the ball in any area. Even today, with so many other games trying to copy the over-the-shoulder camera style, God of War still feels unique. It took a risk by changing almost everything about the franchise, and that risk paid off. Whether you're playing it for the first time or revisiting it years later, it's still worth your time. God of War 2018 didn't just revive the franchise, it redefined it. And even now, it remains one of the best games of its generation.